matter of the people of the state of California versus Orenthal James Simpson, case number BA096.
And so, my fellow Americans, ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for
Boom, Taylor, we are live. How are you?
I'm good.
How's BFG? Oh, not.
Oh my God. Yeah,
Yes,
BFG.
BFG. Okay, sorry.
Ben Franklin's ghost. He's wonderful. He's a very chill pet. I know you just mentioned that you have another dog at your house. A tortoise is nothing like a dog. He is outside. Well, we put him outside during the day and he just finds a shady spot, but he's tired because he lived at the zoo in a smaller pen. Now he has a pretty big yard to walk around, so he gets tired and then we bring him in around 4 and give him a bunch of lettuce and then he goes to sleep.
That's so cute. He is
I sent
so
you a picture.
cute.
Oh my God, we got him this tiny flower pot that's just his size, and we just stick his head in the flower pot and put him in there, and he just crawls all the way in, and he sleeps for 15 hours.
That's so adorable. I'm
Oh my God, he's so
jealous
cute.
of the low maintenance element of your pet.
No, I think he's gonna do great outside. He liked the little burrow that we built him, and yeah, I think he's doing good.
And at
He
least
pooped
for
a couple
now,
times, so he
you
seems
have to bring
healthy.
him inside, I take it.
Yes, well, they said to bring him inside just because he's kind of small, but I actually think he'd be fine back there. I don't know if we'd have to, but we want to.
Because what? If you don't, then maybe Owl will get to him or
Yeah.
what? Okay.
Yeah, I don't think any land animal could get to him because we put up plastic corrugated thing that you would put on top of a patio all the way around the fence. So he can't see out, nothing can see in. And so I think that a coyote's not going to jump that fence to eat him.
Yeah.
I don't believe
Okay.
that. But I would worry about a hawk.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah,
But he's
birds
not
of
that
prey.
small. He's kind of big. I don't know.
Um,
Anyway, I have a desert tortoise. He will live here forever. He's amazing.
it is very cool. I love your desert tortoise, and please keep sending me pictures as
I
often
will.
as you'd like.
I will. I will. You got
Um,
it.
Sweet. Well, why don't I bring up something that we were discussing that's going to be a little bit of a change to the show format going forward.
Cool.
So we are going to reduce a little bit of our recording schedule and release once a week instead of twice a week. And
Which I think is totally
hopefully,
fair. Yeah.
I hope there's not a ton of drop off, or maybe, folks can give more feedback between episodes on what they like, what they didn't like. But yeah, it's summer break coming up, and we want to take a little bit easy on ourselves, and so that was kind of our compromise. So
Cool.
so so we're gonna do one. We're actually gonna record twice today, but we're gonna release one this coming week, and then the next episode the following week. So
Yeah,
that's the idea.
exactly. And if you haven't listened to all of our episodes, we have a million. So go back
Yeah,
and listen to them.
yeah, we have a huge catalog at this point.
Yeah, just a million.
Sweet. So Taylor, are you gonna go first today?
I think so.
Cool.
Okay. But first, we're doomed to fail.
Oh,
We bring you
yes.
history's most notorious disasters and failures. And I am Taylor, joined by Fars. And now I'm ready.
Okay. Thank you for the reminder.
Um, I am going to, for my last episode for Pride Month, talk about Harvey Milk.
Oh,
You,
nice.
yeah. I haven't, I saw the movie a long time ago. Did you see it?
I saw it so long ago. I just know James Franco was in it and Sean Penn
Yeah.
played him, but I
Yeah.
don't know. And I know he was killed by another city council member, but I don't
Yes.
know every. Oh, did I just ruin everything?
No, everybody knows that. I
Okay.
think that's the basic. That was actually my next line. Harvey Milk held the elected position of supervisor, which means city council in San Francisco. He was the first openly gay elected official in California and one of the first in the nation. And he was assassinated by a former coworker at City Hall,
What year?
1978.
Wow, it took that long to have an openly gay.
Yeah,
Well, office holder? Is that what you said?
elected office. Yeah,
Oh, wow.
yeah,
There's probably a ton that just weren't.
of course,
Right.
exactly.
Right.
Of course,
It's like I
there's
remember
plenty
when
of.
Michael Sam's came out as gay in the NFL, and I was like, there's probably a ton.
There's just no way, and probably many of
Statistically, it's impossible.
statistically it's possible, and many of those people also probably never told anybody they were gay anyway. You know what I mean? It was just for whatever reason, or hopefully they did, or whatever. Did you ever watch that stupid Will Ferrell movie about Eurovision?
No.
It's so good. It's just like it's him and Rachel McAdams, and they like are like Icelandic people who put a song into Eurovision. And at one point, she meets someone from Russia, and the guy from Russia is like, "There are no gay people in Russia," even though he's like very clearly gay. And she's like, "Statistically, there have to be," and he's like, "Nope." So like
Yeah.
exactly that. But Harvey Milk was the first openly gay person elected to public office in California and one of the first in the nation. So this is really sad. I've been sad all morning because I kind of got to the end of the book yesterday afternoon and then this morning. But his big thing was to be out and proud and don't hide yourself and don't let them force you to hide. That was like his big things. I read the book The Mayor of Castro Street by Randy Shilts, and this was written in like 1980. So like really quickly after all of this happened, was the book. So it was good. I recommend it. So Harvey Bernard Milk was born on May 22nd, 1930 in Woodmere, New York, which is just outside of JFK, so like very close to the city. Like you could say you lived in like Queens, kind of. He had one older brother named Robert. His parents were both in the Navy, which is cool. And like they're both military people, and then they settled down in Long Island area. And while he was very young, Harvey would go to the city and like watch the opera. And while he was there, he would like meet men in Central Park because he knew he was gay and he was sexually active by the time he was like a young teen
Sure.
in like private, in like not private, in like the woods. Not you know what I
The
mean?
brambles.
Yes. And this is like the 1940s, So like lavender scare stuff that you talked about in the past is like happening now as well. During World War II, I'm pretty sure that his parents like knew that he was gay or that something was different. They told him about how in Warsaw before World War II, Germany had been headed towards having gay rights. Like, and we had talked about this like before, like parts of that part of Europe had been very progressive, and then it obviously took like a huge turn. And gay people were some of the first people to be killed in concentration camps.
Yep.
So he was like aware of this, and his parents would tell him about it. Harvey went to college in Albany. He wrote for the newspaper. He played sports. After college, he just left. He never really returned. People like thought that was kind of weird. Like some people would come back for reunions and such. And he was like, whatever. He was a Goldwater Republican, and conservative, and he was a officially a Republican until 1972 when he became a Democrat. After college, he went into the Navy. It was the Korean War, and he was a diving officer on a submarine rescue ship and then a diving instructor in San Diego. So he was pretty successful in the Navy. But in 1955, he resigned at the rank of lieutenant junior grade because he was forced to accept an other than honorable discharge rather than be court-martialed because they found out that he was gay,
Got it.
which they were doing, all the time. So something to point out that now is that happened a lot. So men would join the military for Korea and for Vietnam and for like these wars. And before they got sent out to war, they would go to California to do basic training and such. Then, if they were caught or like outed in some way for being gay, they would just stay. And that's why that when Harvey starts like doing his political stuff in San Francisco, there's a lot of gay men because a lot of them stayed after being discharged from the military because they couldn't go home.
No way. That's why
Yeah.
San
Yeah.
Francisco's gay.
Yeah, that's a big part of it because a lot of people would end up there and they get kind of stranded there. And then what's the option? You go home to like Kansas and tell your parents that you got kicked out of the Navy for being gay? No, you
Yeah.
just stay, you know?
Yeah.
So this way you can like stay in a community where people are like you and you can start trying to live like an out life. So that's kind of where it started, but still very early. It's in like the 50s and the 60s. So Harvey didn't do that yet. He wasn't in California yet, but that made a lot of sense to me as like a reason why there'd be a lot of people there.
That means
You
like
know,
if Alabama was where they did training for the Navy, then it would be the gay capital of the world.
could have been. I
That's
don't know.
wild.
Does Alabama hit an ocean? I don't know. A river?
I don't know geography.
Either. I mean, I probably couldn't put it out on a map, but I could try. Hold on, I'm gonna open my water. Harvey also in his life has a lot of boyfriends and lovers. He's one of those guys who like didn't believe in monogamy, just wants to like, you know, hook up with a bunch of people, maybe have someone at home, that kind of thing. His type was like a young, skinny guy was Harvey's type. His longest relationship was one of his first relationships with a man named Joe Campbell. So they met in New York and they lived together and then they moved to Dallas. And they, even though they lived together and were like, roommates, quote, 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 all the things, when they got to Dallas, they couldn't get jobs because they were Jewish. So they had to move back.
I did not know Harvey Milk was Jewish.
Hmm.
That is that. Yeah. Wow. Okay.
Yeah,
They ran into every wood chipper. It's like it's like
exactly.
anti-Semitism, homophobia, like the whole thing.
Exactly. So they moved back to New York, and it's the late 1950s. While they were there, Joe like gilded furniture, and Harvey tried to find a job because he had studied math and he was a teacher for a little bit. He's also a little bit like I think Harvey Milk was a little bit I don't know what the word is. I want to say like controlling in his relationships as well because he would like love bomb Joe and then like also like control what he did a little bit. And it's kind of a thing that keeps going for him because his partners stay the same and he gets older, you know? So when he's like in his 40s dating someone in their early 20s, he has so much control, but then he also just like sends them tons of flowers and love notes and all these things so they can't really like live their own life. So that's something that his partners seem to have like a little bit of contention with as we go through his story.
Can that be like just a product of the times? Like,
Oh,
I
absolutely.
think like back then, like a 40-year-old being with like a 20-year-old wasn't seen as gross as I think most people see that today.
Yeah. No, totally.
So, anyways, we're all product of our times.
Yeah. It's all sorts of things. So eventually, him and Joe break up, and he gets into other relationships. One of his partners, Craig Rodwell, is one of the people who was considered one of the leading gay rights activists pre-Stonewall. He opened up a bookshop called the Oscar Wilde Memorial Bookshop in New York that was there until it closed in 2009. And he was one of the first people to advocate for a pride parade. So Harvey isn't political, but he's around people who are like starting to bring up a political, we got to do something
I mean,
vibe
yeah, the
to
first
the room.
step is typically advocacy because it's something that you can attach yourself to easily, and then you start getting into the granular details, the policy, and then you get political.
Exactly. Yes. So where
Are
am
you
I?
okay?
Oh,
I feel like you just had a
I like,
brain fart.
I did. I'm like, what happened? I'm getting a text message. I'm like, what? Okay, I'm ignoring that. So Harvey tries to be a teacher. He tries to be a stockbroker, but like he doesn't like regular jobs. And he decides to become a hippie because it's like the time. So we never see him with long hair. I don't think I would ever picture him with long hair, but he had like long hippie hair. He's very tall and he would just like wear like whatever he felt like. Later when he wears suits, because you'll see him in suits when he's like a politician, they're all secondhand. Like they're all like threadbare when they go through his closet after his death. They like can't find anything that matches. Like he just like really didn't he just like kind of let that part not bother him. So while he was a hippie, he moved to San Francisco and just hung out for a while. He had like a very young boyfriend who was a teenager, and they
It's
would
a
like
little
do puzzles and like hang out, which also I think is a product of your time.
that's a little more problematic. Also, it's funny
Yeah,
when you're talking about long hair and like picturing him, I literally just pictured Sean Penn with long hair.
I know. I did kind of did too, and it was weird, and I hated it. So he he's traveling with some Broadway productions of Hair and Jesus Christ Superstar, which is fun. And he's kind of doing nothing, and he's in San Francisco. He goes back to New York, just kind of like fiddling around, not really having a job. 1971, he's back in New York, and he meets a man named Scott Smith, and him and Scott moved back to San Francisco. In
That's James
1973,
Franco.
yes,
Okay,
yeah, a lot of I don't think there's like one gay person involved in the making of the movie Milk, but yes.
sounds right.
So
So someone in the design
maybe like a
territory.
hairdresser, maybe like one. Um, so in 1973, Harvey has a roll of film developed and the place ruins it and he's annoyed. So he starts a camera store. It's on Castro Street in San Francisco and it is called Castro Camera. It's never going to make any money, but it's actually going to be a decision that plops him in the right place to be part of the gay rights movement and to like become a leader. Castro Street is a place with like a lot of gay businesses. It still is now, but it's like now it's expensive. But then it
I
was
got
like
dude,
poor.
Castro blows my mind because it is expensive and you would never know it when you're
Yes,
there because
exactly.
the people walking around look absolutely homeless and probably are. And I also got my car broken into there. And I was like,
Yeah,
this is a nice part of town.
I know. I haven't really been in San Francisco, but I've been in like Oakland. I've been like, it's not great here, but continue. Try your best.
Right.
So now we're in San Francisco, and we'll talk politics there around the Castro in the area. So things are starting to happen because there's so many gay people, and they're actually starting to like talk about it now. So we have this like part of town. It's District 5, where people are kind of are moving. There are different people running for mayor, but you do need the gay vote and the gay dollar to win. So there are candidates that go and talk to the gay community because they know that they need them. The police department in San Francisco is very, very conservative, so that's something to remember. And also, another politician who's part of the story is Dianne Feinstein, who enters the picture right about now. So she knows she's a moderate liberal, and she knows that she needs the gay community, but privately and legislatively, she's wary of it. We know people who've worked for her. I know she has since passed. We know people who really like her. I do know that like one thing that she did that is not great is when they were searching for Richard Ramirez. Do you remember this part of the Night
No.
Stalker story? He like wore like a very specific shoe, and she announced it in a press conference. So he
I
obviously
do
to stop
remember
wearing that
that.
shoe.
I
Looks
do.
stupid, but like
Yeah.
it's like my big memory of Dianne Feinstein. But um, what she goes through the day that Harvey dies is really wild. So we'll talk about that later. But she's like on the supervisor board with him and other people as well. So at this point, Harvey says, quote, he's like kind of like messing, like not messing with, but like the police are starting to mess with the area. They're not getting like their tax dollars spent the right way. And Harvey says, quote, I finally reached the point where I knew I had to become involved or shut up. He couldn't continue to just like yell about it and not do anything. So he starts to run for office, and he starts with the office of supervisor, which you're exactly right. It's like city council. San Francisco still has 11 supervisors. Each one of them is for a specific district. They oversee city services, neighborhood concerns, local laws, that kind of thing.
They're like weirdly
And
powerful, like in
yeah,
California, in San Francisco, because you have to think about like the size and scale of the amount of resources, economic resources in California and San Francisco. Like those people actually wield real power.
yeah, yeah. So it's his first election. He still has long hair. He's still a little scrubby. And the person he's like technically going against, like his biggest competition, is sort of like the next in line guy, you know? So he really doesn't have a chance to win, but he does get a lot of votes, like more than people thought that he would get. He comes in 10th out of 32, which, isn't last.
That's actually not that bad.
Yeah. And while right before he does get elected supervisor eventually. They'll change the law, but at this moment in time, his first campaign, the way you vote is it's just whoever the top 11 people for supervisor in the whole city are become that board, like this, all the supervisors. But they changed the law so that it's district by district. Because even in this first election, if it was just District 5, the district that the Castro district is in, he would have won that district.
Oh, so it was well that no, that's not ranked choice voting. I guess it is kind of like ranked choice voting.
Well, you're only voting for kind of, but you're
Well, it's not like ranked choice voting because
no,
ranked choice voting takes like there's still one person that wins at the end of
right,
the ballot. So yeah,
right. This one is just like the top however many people or
yeah,
whatever. Or like I think you run for certain spots, but like it's like you're running for spot number whatever, but it doesn't correlate to a place you're living
yep.
necessarily. So he would have won if it had correlated to just that area. So that's why like part of the reason that he campaigned to make that stop so you could actually be in your district and represent it. So that they changed after Harvey's death, they changed it back to being a citywide election, and then as far as I can tell, right now it's back to being district level. So like it flipped a couple times.
Makes so much more sense. Like I don't.
Of course it does. Yeah. So um he's also unofficially now the mayor of Castro Street. He's getting people super involved. His apartment above the camera store, it's like a campaign center. Everyone's always like, you know, they have a problem, they come to him and he can help them fix it. He also, a big part of his philosophy also is not just for gay people. He wants to work for everyone. So he became a really big supporter of unions. The Teamsters endorsed him. Him and the Teamsters had a thing where the Teamsters wanted a union and Coors Beer wouldn't sign. So all of the gay bars boycotted Coors Beer and it worked. And they ended up signing the contract. So he was able to like do things like that to be like, we have economic power here in the gay community, you know?
Nice.
Yeah. And then he became friends with a lot of these like so these like scruffy Teamster union guys would like come down to the Castro Street to help with the campaign, which was always fun because they'd be like,
That had to be a sight for
yeah,
both
for
parties.
everyone. Just like, what's going on? So the Castro area is super interesting. People can go there and feel safe. They can come there and find community. Sometimes it would be annoying to some of the people who had lived there longer that like all the new gays look the same. You know, they'd all come and like have the same outfit and they kind of look similar, but then they just finally wanted to feel like they belonged somewhere, you know? And it was like kind of a new phenomenon to figure out who they are in a place where they can be themselves,
I
you
mean,
know?
it's literally every town. I mean,
Yeah.
they say the same thing with Austin when I got here. Like, don't California my Austin. And it was like, this is just the nature of things.
Yeah. Whatever.
Demographics change and you just
Yeah,
gotta adjust.
exactly. That's hilarious. So it's also bad because prices became insane. And we talked about this too, like what you were just saying, like, you know, a lot of people couldn't afford their houses or like old like Catholic families would sell their house for like, you know, a little for however much money and then a year later it'd be worth 6 times as much, you know?
Yeah.
Like that stuff goes up. Harvey and Scott, they get priced out of the Castor camera and their apartment. They have to move. Like the whole neighborhood just becomes like, really expensive like really quickly. But Harvey decides to get serious and like get those suits and cut his hair and like really have an actual campaign for supervisor. So he runs again in 1975 and he loses, but it's a very, very close. And so this is the second campaign he loses, but he's super close this time. And the new mayor that is elected that night is George Moscone. George Moscone is an Italian guy from California. He visits Harvey in his campaign office that night and is like, I know you lost, but I like want you in my cabinet, which is huge because they acknowledge Harvey's campaign like the day that he wins to be mayor of San Francisco. So George Moscone just other things about him. He had been key in repealing sodomy laws in California, so always someone like with forwarding progressive causes. He appointed a police chief that some said it was okay for police officers to be gay, and it made the police like it boiled the pot even more for them, you know, because like most of them were really pissed that that would be a thing. But like you said, like they were already there.
Right.
So George Moscone was born on November 24th, 1929. He's just a year older than Harvey. He would be known as the People's Mayor. He was also in Korea. He had worked his way up in politics. He was a state senator before this. He had 4 children, and he seems like a pretty okay guy. Just FYI, that's the mayor of San Francisco.
All right. We're fans.
We'll get back to him. So things aren't like just because like this is happening and Harvey is like in the middle of this movement, there aren't things aren't perfect. There are definitely gay people who are getting murdered, you know, getting like picked up on like a street corner and then killed, things like that are happening. There are police beatings, there's like all sorts of other things happening. And in the meantime, Harvey is kind of working frantically to get this position to help his friends in the district to like help make San Francisco better. He's in his mid 40s and he does not think he will make it to 50. He talks about it all the time. He says, I don't have much time. I'm not going to be able to do this forever. Things like that. He brings it up a lot to his friends. And he works like at like a very feverish pace. And I know you haven't seen Hamilton first, but I just wanted to just ask if you haven't.
You are correct.
Okay. So in Hamilton, the second act of things are always so sad, but in the second act, which is the sad act of Hamilton, his wife sings him a song that is like, why do you write like you're running out of time? Like, why are you so like why can't you stop working? And that's kind of what Harvey was doing now. He was writing like he was running out of time. Like he had no reason to actually think this, but he was like working like he was not going to make it to 50. In 1976, Mayor Moscone appoints Milk or Harvey to the Board of Permit Appeals, so he's in the offices, but it makes him the first openly gay city commissioner in the United States. But he leaves that job within like 8 months to go run for supervisor a third time. So, by the way, when he is in that job and when he is a supervisor, he will be in the San Francisco City Hall, which is a building that he loves, and it has a grand staircase, and he always takes the stairs. He would never take the elevator. He just like loved being in the grandeur of the building. So after that district bill was passed, where it was like every district votes for their own supervisor, he runs in 1978, and this is when he does win. He runs against a man named Art Agnos, and Art Agnos likes him and tells him to talk about hope. He's like they debate all the time, and he's like, Harvey, your stuff is a little bit too sad. You got to think about hope. You got to think about like good things. So he's, working on that. And there's also an interesting side note is while they don't endorse him, he does get a lot of help from the People's Temple. You know who that is?
I do recall this. Yeah,
Because
this is Jim Jones.
that's Jim Jones. So his folks are in San Francisco right now, kind of, living in like a high security compound, doing all of that. And Harvey says, quote, to a staffer, he says, quote, make sure you're always nice to the People's Temple. If they ask you to do something, do it, and then send them a note thanking them for asking you to do it. Because he like knew that they're crazy, pretty much. He was
Well,
like,
they're crazy, but they also had like a ton of power because they were like one
exactly.
voting constituency, like a single block.
Exactly. So he's like, be super nice to them, but be wary, like something's weird. So he's also a bit of a mess. He's not sleeping. He's up and down. He's just like trying to get this campaign over. Him and Scott break up because Scott's a little bit like, I fell in love with a hippie and like, who are you? Because now he's like really like trying to be a politician. And Harvey continues on his campaign. And it's also a time in America where Christian conservatives are freaking out. And one big thing that was happening in Florida, in Dade County, Miami, is a woman named Anita Bryant had a campaign called Save Our Children, which was like save our kids from every bad thing that gay people are doing to them. And she won by a lot. It was like a special election, and there was rioting all over the country for this. And so gay people are starting to see their rights as they were slowly getting them, they're slowly getting taken away as well. Because it's like out in the zeitgeist that people are worried about it,
Sorry, what did she run for and win?
She didn't run for anything. She passed a special legislation to like stop to like pull back a bunch of gay rights laws in Miami, in Florida.
Oh, okay. All right.
That had like bid for it and then weren't. Um, After she wins in California, a San Francisco California state senator named John Briggs, he sees an opening and tries to do the same thing. He has like another bill that would ban gays and lesbians from teaching in public schools throughout California. And then privately, he told the author of the book I read, it's just politics. Like I don't really have anything against gay people. He's just trying to like find that vote and win.
Yeah, that's what like
So,
most people running for office do. They
I know
just
they're all
follow the
like friends.
herd.
Yeah. So Harvey wins, and it's very exciting. And because of the redistricting, like more the making it you voted for your own supervisor, also when he was sworn in was a single mother, a black woman, and a Chinese American, and those were all firsts too.
Nice.
Because like of course people want people who look like them to represent them,
Yeah.
which is exciting. And then also who was sworn in the same day as Harvey Milk is Supervisor Dan White. So Dan White was born on September 2nd, 1946. He was in Vietnam, so he's 16 years younger than Harvey. He was a police officer. He was a firefighter. He had a history of beating up black people. He saved a woman and her baby from a building when he was a fireman, and the paper called him All-American. He's just like a All-American white guy who's not great. He was married and had three children, and he was a Democrat, but he was on the more conservative side. So like I said, there are 11 supervisor positions. So he was like the sixth vote to stop a lot of the things that Harvey wanted to do a bunch, and that they started to get kind of frustrated with each other. But when Harvey was a supervisor, he actually, this is interesting and it applies to you literally right now. Um, he helped pass laws that you have to clean up your own dog poop in San Francisco. Not that people do that
I
as
hope
much as
people
they
do
should.
that.
Um,
No, I think it's
but
human poop they don't clean up. I think they clean up
oh,
after their
got it.
dogs. Yeah.
Got it. Yeah. Okay. Well, he was one of the first people to do to put laws on that. He wanted tax reforms, new industries in the neighborhood, low cost housing. He, worked with other minority groups and labor unions because he was like, we're not just going to serve gay interests. We're going to help everyone when we
Yeah.
have the opportunity. His big accomplishment was an anti-discrimination ordinance from 1978, where it protected gay men and lesbians from discrimination in housing, employment, and public accommodations through the city. So that was like really great. And the New York Times was like, this is the most stringent and encompassing in the nation of all gay rights laws. So super good stuff happening. And that passed as well. He also, again, insisted that people don't keep silent, that they talk about who they are. So he said, quote, the us's, those have been oppressed. I'm tired of the conspiracy of silence. So I'm going to talk about it. And I want you to talk about it. You must come out. So it was like he kept continuing to be loud about it. He has, in 1978, his most popular speech is the Hope speech. And he talked about, we'll hear about he did this after a parade where it's a picture you might see of him where he's in a convertible and has a big sign and like a lei around his neck. The sign says, "I'm from Woodmere, New York." So he wanted people to say all the places that they were from, and they all got together in San Francisco and how they felt safe there. Um, Part of that speech is very similar to saying, like, we have to come out. We will not win our rights by staying quietly in our closets. We have to come out to fight the lies and the myths and the distortions. So he, was really a big advocate in that. His personal life while he was supervisor and like up into that campaign, after him and Scott broke up, he dated a man named Jack Lira, who was like definitely an alcoholic and would cause scenes everywhere that they went. Like he would just like always be yelling and causing commotion. And
God, even when you're gay, you can't escape it.
you
It's like
can't.
there's always that partner when you're like successful who's just like just an absolute dumpster fire that follows you around and causes a scene.
Yeah, and everybody was embarrassed. Like it was terrible. And so they broke up, and then one day Harvey gets back into his apartment and he finds a series of notes on the ground, leading to the back of the apartment where Jack has died by suicide by hanging himself. And
That's pretty
he left
selfish. That's pretty awful and selfish. And yeah, I don't feel bad for him. I think he's a piece of shit for doing that to him.
he left like mean notes all over the apartment and like hid them in places so Harvey would find them later.
What a piece of
Like
shit.
really horrible. Like Harvey met his mother after at the funeral and his mom said, "This isn't your fault." Like he was just like this. Just a
What a nightmare.
troublemaker. So initially, Dan White and Harvey Milk get along. They both are new to being supervisors. Harvey went to Dan's son's baptism. Like they got along. And they start to kind of grow apart pretty quickly. Often, like I said, White was a sixth vote in stopping things from getting passed. And White became really frustrated with his role as a supervisor, so he quits. So on November 10th, I think we're in 1978. Okay, November 10th, 1978. They've like barely been in their office. They haven't even had a whole year as supervisors. Dan White decides to quit. So he's the other guy that was like the all-American police officer guy. He quits. He has a potato stand on a pier that he wants to spend more time at, which like I also want to spend more time at a potato stand. So
Sorry, what's a potato stand? He just gives you raw potatoes.
no, they give you cooked potatoes.
Like a baked potato, he just hands
Yeah,
you a whole baked potato, and then while you're walking on the pier, you just spoon baked potato in your face.
I feel like you're saying that like it's a bad thing.
How does this sound weird to you? You don't think this is weird? Like, would you ever walk up to a guy and be like, "Give me a hot potato to walk around with"? This is my walking around
Not
hot
like a
potato.
random person, but if it was a man in like a potato-shaped truck, yes, I
So,
would.
okay, all right, very weird. But still
But
no coconuts. The walking
so
around potato, yes, but definitely not a coconut.
yeah, no, I'll definitely walk around with the big potato. I have no problem doing that. So the equivalent salary to today's money, it's about like $47,000 a year. So Dan was like, I have four kids. I can't have my family on this amount of money. And because he has to also take care of his potato stand. So he resigns. He writes a letter to Moscone and says, I don't want to be a supervisor anymore. So Moscone says, great, thank you. Whatever, makes some calls, and they're gonna move on. He has to appoint someone new. So he has to make a decision to figure out who it's going to be. But in the meantime, Dan White changes his mind. And he goes back, like, remember that episode of Seinfeld where George quits and then pretends he didn't?
I never saw that.
That's almost exactly what is happening right now. He quits and then comes back and he's like, well, I want my job back. Let's just give it to me back. You don't have to do anything else. And Moscone's like, well, I can't really do that. You already quit. Like, I already have gears in motion to appoint someone else. So they're trying to figure out, like, exactly what to do. So Dan's mad, but he wants his job back anyway. So in the meantime, so that's November 10th when he quits, and then like, a couple days later he wants to come
Do
back.
we know why he wants to come back?
I think he was getting pressured by his constituency of more conservative people. They're like, they're going to replace you with someone who is more progressive. That's not what you promised us,
Uh,
and getting like pressure, like, we're not going to come to your potato stand.
Yeah, we're gonna boycott potatoes.
Yeah. So that's why. It was because people were pressuring him to go back because they were like, they're going to find someone who doesn't represent what we represent as the more conservative faction of this district. So he's getting that kind of pressure. So November 17th and 18th, so just a week after Dan White quits, is when the People's Temple all die by suicide in Guyana. So they had just went there, and Congressman Leo Ryan went to go see because some of the families in San Francisco had asked him to go and check on their friends because most of the People's Temple family were in San Francisco. And then he gets killed, news reporters get killed, and then 900 people or so die by suicide. So everyone's running around trying to figure out what to do because this is like obviously a tragedy for the community because they knew those people and they worked with them and they were like, how could this have happened? Dan White says, quote, "You see that? One day I'm on the front page and the next I'm swept right off," when the news coverage went away from him, which is a shitty thing to say
A little
because
bit.
900 people died. So November 27th is the day, 1978, is the day that Moscone is about to announce White's replacement. The night before, Harvey Milk um, goes to the opera, called a bunch of friends. He writes a letter that says, "I went to the opera today. It was beautiful. Life is worth living," and mailed it off to a friend in New York. That friend wouldn't get that letter until after he was dead.
Yikes.
He called a bunch of people and like talked on the phone for longer than usual, which also reminds me a little bit of like you're running out of time. Like, what do you do when you know when you have a feeling, you know? So he did all of that. And the next day he went to work like normal. That day, Moscone was supposed to announce White's replacement, and Dan White decides to go to City Hall, and he can't walk in the front doors because he has a gun. So he crawls through a window in the basement to avoid the metal detectors. And someone sees him, and he's like, "Oh, I'm just in a hurry." Like, that's not normal. What are you talking about? Um, he goes to Moscone's office. Moscone's like, "Dan, I can't put you back in your position, but let's like talk this out." He takes him to he has like a second part of his office where he has like a little bar. And he like makes him a drink, and he's like, "Let's just talk about it." And Dan White takes out his gun, shoots Moscone in the shoulder and the chest, and then the head, and he is now bleeding out and dying on the floor of his office. People didn't really hear it because it was kind of in like a back part of the muffled office. So Dan White leaves, and the person who's supposed to meet with Moscone next is waiting outside. He doesn't go in until 5 minutes after the time that he was supposed to meet with him. But he's like, "What is he? Is he okay? What's going on?" You know?
Yeah.
And by that time, he's dead. Dan White walks to his old office through the hall. While he's walking, he refills his gun.
Was he
Diane
mad at
find,
Miss Sconey because he was gonna continue on to assign a seat to someone
yeah,
else?
yeah,
Okay, so it was revenge.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. He walks back to his office. He passes Diane Feinstein's office and her assistants are trying to get his attention. They're like, "We need to talk to you," because they knew that like he was going to be mad about this. They didn't know they'd already talked to the mayor. They didn't know the mayor was dead. They were just like, what's going on? He sees Harvey. Him and Harvey walk into a room together, and he shoots Harvey 3 times in the body. Those 3 shots would not have killed him, but he shoots him again in the head, and that did it. Harvey Milk's last words were, "Oh no,"
Do we
because
know
he
why he wanted to kill Harvey? Why didn't he kill Feinstein?
I think Harvey was the person who was most excited about him not being on the board anymore.
Oh,
Um,
he was probably
because
lobbying Miss Sconey.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely lobbying was going to replace him. He didn't want him on the board anymore. Yeah, yeah. So White leaves City Hall. In the meantime, like Diane Feinstein hears shots from her office, and people go running to try to figure out what to do. She will become mayor because the mayor has died and she was the chair of the board. And then eventually she'll also win her election the next time it's an actual election. Dan White leaves, meets his wife at a train station, goes out to dinner, and then turns himself in. So they all know it was him, and they're all like looking for him. Um, a lot of Harvey Milk's friends will find out about it on the news, and it'll kind of be like the mayor's been killed, and then and someone else, and they're like, "Who else is it?" That's the news across the country. A lot of them find out that way. Um, so as far as like who replaced Harvey Milk and all those things, that's sort of like a whole other thing. But one thing that it was wild is he had a tape that was like, "Play this in case I get assassinated," essentially. And it
Well,
was like,
he knew his
if
fate.
if I get shot in the head, play this. And it listed people who he thought could be replacements for him, who he thought shouldn't be a replacement for him. His friends will run one of his campaign managers, a young lesbian woman, but somebody else ends up winning. But like it's not the same as it was when Harvey was there, like of course, like afterwards.
Dan White
Um,
looks like Dexter. Michael C.
yes, he
Hall.
does. He does. He's creepy.
Yeah.
Um, so Harvey Milk donates his eyes to someone who needs eyes, just FYI. His ashes were scattered in the bay with a bunch of Kool-Aid as a joke after People's
Oh,
Temple.
because of the People's Temple.
Yeah.
It wasn't
Um,
Kool-Aid.
yeah. So I know that. So Dan White would be tried, obviously. The jury was all white men, all straight white men. The defense was the quote Twinkie defense, which was that he ate too much junk food and that messed with his mind.
Oh, is that where
And
that
that,
came from?
yeah. And that he like didn't really know what he was doing. That he had a gun because he was used to having a gun. And you're like, but he climbed through the freaking window, like all sorts of things. And he ended up being convicted of manslaughter, which is an insanely low conviction, and he got 7 years in jail.
Josh Brolin's a good casting
He
call.
is. With that, as soon as he puts his hair over his forehead,
Yeah.
it's pretty good. Um, so after Dan White's kind of crappy sentencing, there were riots. They called them the White Night riots, named after Jonestown also, because that was the night that everybody died. And things just went in and out of being good. Rent's up now, it's expensive. People dispersed without a leader, others stayed, but obviously, like, there's still, gay rights fights to be had. Um, Dan White only served 5 years in prison. He moved home with his family. Feinstein told him not to come back to San Francisco. The mayor of LA said, we don't want him here either. Like, we don't want this murderer here. And he ends up going back to San Francisco eventually. In 1984, a documentary about Harvey Milk won the Academy Award for Best Documentary. In 1985, Dan White died by suicide on October 21st in his car in his garage with he left the car on.
Yeah, he seems
And
like a really troubled person.
yeah, yeah. So
Also, he
Harvey,
was probably repressed too. Maybe he was gay.
I know Harvey did call him a closet case.
Maybe that's true. Like, I mean,
I know.
you said he was raised Catholic and, he was like, this is the way I got to live my life, but this isn't really who I am. We're speculating, but like, that seems plausible. Maybe that's what he resented Harvey about the most was like, I'm jealous that you get to live who you are.
Yeah, totally. I'm not I'm not against that idea. I agree. So obviously we can remember Harvey Milk as a groundbreaker, trying not to hide. In 2009, obviously posthumously, he received the Presidential Medal of Freedom. In 2021, they named the U.S. Navy ship USNS Harvey Milk. It's a John Lewis class replenishment oiler, and it is going to be renamed
I did hear
soon,
about this.
because the Fox News host wants it renamed. So that's a bummer. And it's not
What
just
was
like
it?
they named a boat after
What
who's
was
in the
it?
Navy. You know what I
What
mean?
was it
Like
named before?
before that, I think it was a new boat.
In 2021, it was a new boat?
I think so.
Interesting. Okay. Big
Um,
boat.
yeah, I don't know, big Navy thing. Um, so okay, I'm going to read a little bit from a speech that Harvey Milk did in 1973, which is early before he won because he didn't win until 1977. That he did when he was called himself a populist person running for office, and he's talking about the people who are fighting against gay rights in America. And he says, quote, I just pulled this from like the middle of it, but he says, quote, do they ever read history? Because of the failure of their family, of their church, they are attempting to make the police force into ministers while crimes against victims increases. This false morality is against the Constitution. If they do not like the Constitution, let them amend it. Let them scrap the Declaration of Independence, and in the meantime, let them go back to God with their morality and become ministers. Instead of spending time trying to get the death penalty passed, let them reread the Ten Commandments. Let them teach the commandment, thou shalt not kill. I know of no commandment that says, thou shalt not smoke marijuana. I know of no commandment that says, thou shalt read certain books. I know of no commandment that says, thou shalt not walk naked. Why are they such moralists when it comes to the Ten Commandments and not anti-moralists or it comes to man's commandments and such anti-moralists when it comes to God's commandments? Let me have my tax money go for my protection and not for my prosecution. Let my tax money go for the protection of me. Protect my home, protect my streets, protect my car, protect my life, protect my property. Let my minister worry about me playing bar dice. Let my minister and not some policeman worry about my moral life. Worry about gun control, not marijuana control. Worry about mental care for the elderly, not about hookers. Worry about child care centers and not about what books I might want to read. Worry about becoming a human being and not about how you can prevent others from enjoying their lives because of your own inabilities to adjust to life.
Yeah, it's well said.
Yeah.
Really appreciate
Yeah.
it. I will say one thing that I just read about the ship, the military ship called the
Hmm.
Harvey Milk currently. Very, very ironically, apparently last year during Gaza war protests, 9 pro-Palestinian protesters like went on the ship to create like a disturbance and chained
Hmm.
themselves to the ship, which is like you realize they would have thrown Harvey Milk off a like lit him on fire and thrown him off a roof. Like
Yes.
it's like do y'all not see the irony in this? But anyways.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sweet, that's a fun story. And also I do remember I did really like that movie. So yeah, I think it's just called Milk. So go check
I
it
think
out.
it's called milk. Yeah. Yeah. I remember it being sad.
That was when Sean Penn hadn't transcended into his like weird, I'm super duper rich and now I'm gonna be like a change maker in the world. That was like before he started like going and interviewing El Chapo and doing weird shit.
But it's after he was in jail for domestic abuse.
Yeah,
Like,
he beat
things
Madonna
change.
really early on. Like
Yeah.
he beat her ass like really early. I mean, that was
Oh, and he
like,
was in jail with the Night Stalker.
oh my God, you're right. Everything comes full circle.
Full circle.
Wow. Very fun.
Yeah.
Sweet. All right. Well, thank you for sharing.
You're welcome.
I will have a call out for everyone. If y'all love baked potatoes, actually, you know what? Write to us and tell us what kind of potatoes you like. Gmail.com.
Yeah, I kind of feel like my answer might be any potato, but I don't know.
I'm not huge on twice baked potatoes.
Oh, I love twice baked potatoes.
Yeah, I
Interesting.
know everybody
I don't
does.
make them because it's so much work if you bake them
It's a
twice.
lot of work. I know. I know.
Like that's way too much work. But I do wish a potato cooked faster. So if there's any genetic engineers in the audience, can you please make that? Make a faster cooking potato.
Yeah, our favorite
Because you have
thing
to
as
wait like
kids,
forever.
it was
Yeah.
lighting the fireplace during the winter and then throwing potatoes underneath it. That was the best thing.
Really?
Yeah, you just wrap it in aluminum foil, you put it like in the
Ah,
fire,
okay.
and then you pull it out, and it's nice and cooked, steaming hot, and just
Mm.
load it up with all the goodies.
Wouldn't you want that in a stand? I feel like you're
It's not
turning
a
around.
walking around food.
But I think,
Things between bread is walking around food.
but there's also like, if you just had it in like a foil, you could eat it and you eat the whole thing, and then you just have a ball of foil then.
I guess.
So,
I guess.
it's also hot. So like, I also am picturing this on the beach, and I don't think there is on the beach, but also I don't know if I want a big potato on the beach.
But if you're in San Francisco, like it is kind of cool. It is cold.
Right.
It's foggy. It's moody, and like a hot potato. I mean, I don't know if you live in San Francisco. Write to us and tell us like, are there hot potato vendors like lining your streets? Is it like taco vendors in Austin? Like, I don't know. Maybe it is.
I I feel like I need to start a potato stand now
What do
to
you think that
sell
would
baked potatoes.
cost?
I
You
don't know
probably you
how much
probably need like you
potatoes.
need to start with like at least $50 worth of potatoes. So you're in $50 already.
It's like a how much? It's one potato. How much can it cost? Um, I don't know.
Sweet. Well, we'll this debate will keep going for millennia, I'm sure.
Um,
Um,
I did. Nadine did say that she was also pro coconut, so you win by a landslide. That's my other news.
there you go. Thanks for
Hmm.
conceding.
Hmm. Hmm.
It's very big of you, very noble.
Hmm.
Sweet. Do we have any other mail that you want to read out here?
Nope, that's it. Thank you, everyone. If you have any ideas or questions or anything, doomtofailpod@gmail.com and doomtofail on all socials.
Sweet. Well, we'll go
We'll
ahead and
see you
cut it
next
off
week.
there. Thank
Cool.
you.
Thanks.